This tale is called Cold-Blooded Kingdom.
Abram and Chet didn't just run an exotic animal store. They ran the exotic animal store. Cold-Blooded Kingdom sat sandwiched between a vape shop and a payday loan place. But inside, it was paradise for anyone into scales, slime, or segmented legs. Rows of glass tanks pulse with heat lamps and automatic misters. Dart frogs, velvet tarantulas, vine snakes, fire skinks. Everything in perfect condition. Everything hand-picked. Even their crickets were famous, dusted with calcium, gut-loaded like Wagyu. The boys were local legends. Chet, loud, sleeveless, and charming as hell, handled the customers and social media, while Abram, quieter and sharper-eyed, ran the quarantine room and picked out which shipments were worth the cash. They had millions of views on their Feeding Friday clips. A 3-month wait list for some animals. Nerds worshipped them. Wannabe influencers begged for collabs. And they had been bitten enough times to even be famous at the hospital. Abram bad enough once to need surgery. Just a small misunderstanding with a crocodile monitor. But as Chet liked to say, grinning over some new import, "We've seen it all, man. There's nothing left that can surprise us." That would be the last time either of them said that out loud. It was late, well past closing, when Abram's phone lit up with a number he hadn't seen in years. Drake Rojas, old school dealer, part genius, part lunatic. The kind of guy who'd mail you a shoebox full of Peruvian bark scorpions with a post-it that just said, "Feed them first." Chet glanced over, mouth full of flaming hot chips. "That who I think it is?" Abram nodded and swiped to answer. "Drake. Been a while." A dry chuckle crackled through the line. "Still running in the reptile empire, I see." "Still alive?" Abram shot back. "What's up?" There was a pause. Then Drake's voice dropped low and almost amused. "I've got something for you boys. Big score, off-market, off-grid." Chet perked up instantly. Exotic? Untouched? Illegal? Not if no one's claiming the island. Abram raised an eyebrow. Island? No flag, no borders, not even on most maps, Drake said. "I only found it because a cargo drone glitched and pinged the wrong coordinates. Landed somewhere it shouldn't have. What came back wasn't on any registry." He sent over a grainy video, a jungle so dense it looked like it was breathing. In the background, something buzzed past the lens, fast, loud, winged, and wrong. Drake spoke again. "If you're serious about rare, this is where the real freaks live. Stuff the world forgot. You get in, grab a few specimens, and you're legends. Just don't wait. Word's spreading." Chet looked like a kid on Christmas morning. Abram, though? He stared at the screen, watching the frame freeze on that blurred insect. It had too many legs and too many eyes. Still, he didn't hang up. "What's it gonna cost?" he asked. "Everything you've got," Drake replied cheerfully. "But what you bring back could make you kings." They sold 3 prized enclosures, emptied the shop's emergency fund. Abram even pawned his prized albino Burmese python. Within 48 hours, they were gone. First, a budget flight to a nameless airstrip in South America. Then a rickety seaplane flown by a guy with no last name and one eye. Finally, a battered skiff that looked and smelled like it had been hauling fish guts since the Cold War. The boatman, silent the whole trip, finally pointed to a patch of fog on the horizon. "There, your island." It rose out of the ocean like it had been shoved up from below, jagged, green, and steaming. No name. Just thick jungle clinging to cliffside like a parasite. They made landfall with 2 backpacks,
3 cameras, and dozens of plastic terrariums, wooden crates, in rusted cages they rented from the local shipyard. Chet stepped onto the sand, raised a GoPro, and grinned. Welcome to Cold-Blooded Kingdom Extreme Edition. The jungle air hit them like soup. Everything was wet, everything buzzed. A dragonfly the size of a soda can zipped by and smacked into Chet's head. Ow! Dude, what the fuck? Abram wasn't smiling. He knelt down, brushing his fingers across a strange track in the sand. Like a centipede had crawled through dragging barbed wire. Let's stick to the plan, he muttered. Grab what we can, in and out. They disappeared into the undergrowth. Behind them, the fog rolled in again, soft and thick. The boat was already gone. The jungle swallowed them fast. 5 steps off the beach and the air changed. Hotter, thicker, full of a sweet, rotting smell that clung to their shirts. Every few feet, something moved, twitched, blinked. Within the first hour, they'd already filled 2 small crates. The first was a frog, roughly the size of a soup can, with translucent skin that shimmered blue and green like oil. Instead of croaking, it made a low, repeating clicking sound, almost like a dial-up modem. Chet dubbed it Wi-Fi frog. Next, they found 2 beetles, possibly a male and female, copper-bodied, with wings that spread like origami blades. When it opened up to fly, it let out a metallic whir and zipped in sudden, perfect 90-degree turns. That's not behavior I've ever seen, Abram said, eyes glued to the movement. It's got aerial AI, Chet whispered, filming. This thing could outmaneuver a drone. But it was what they found crouched under a thick, broadleaf plant that made Abram stop cold. It was a centipede. But not like any they'd seen before. It was maybe 18 inches long, but thick, almost muscular, with dull red plating that looked like armor. Its antennae flicked with purpose. Its eyes, 4 of them, tracked their movements like a cat studying prey. Abram crouched closer. This thing's not built like any centipede I've ever seen. Chet recoiled slightly. Are those spines on its legs? Abram didn't answer right away. He was watching how it moved. It didn't skitter. It crawled, slowly and deliberately, curling its body with intent. He finally said, "This isn't full grown. Juvenile, maybe?" Chet stared at him. "You're telling me it's gonna get bigger? Damn, dude. Not just bigger, smarter maybe. This guy doesn't move or act like any insect, more like a cat or something." They eased it into one of the reinforced crates. The moment the lid clicked shut, the forest seemed quieter, but not in a peaceful way. Like something had taken notice. "Mark that one for isolation," Abram muttered. The undergrowth got thicker, louder. Strange insects screamed in waves. Leaves brushed against their arms like they were feeling back. Even Chet had gone quiet, checking behind them more often than ahead. Abram stopped suddenly, holding up a hand. "Something's watching us." Chet lowered the camera. "You sure?" A branch snapped to the right. Not a twig. A branch. Thick, heavy. They turned in time to see something slither low through the brush, then rise. It was a monitor lizard, at least 4 feet long, but built like a pit bull, with dense legs, a thick tail, and hide that looked like knotted black leather. Its mouth gaped slightly open, long purple tongue flickering, and inside were 2 rows of serrated teeth. Not like a Komodo, more like a shark. Chet whispered, "Abram, what the fuck is that? It's got 2 sets of teeth. That thing's from the Jurassic or something, dude." The lizard hissed. It didn't charge. Not at first. It watched, slow blinking. Then its throat pulsed and it roared. Loud and guttural, it startled flocks of birds from the trees above. "Run!" Abram shouted. They bolted. The monitor exploded forward with terrifying speed, tail lashing behind it. It didn't move like something heavy, it moved like something hungry. Pure muscle and velocity, tearing through leaves and low branches. Chet ducked under a fallen log. Abram vaulted a root tangle. Behind them, the lizard snapped its jaws and caught Abram's backpack, tearing it clean off his shoulders. "Don't stop!" Abram shouted, adrenaline-fueled and white-knuckled. They burst through a hanging curtain of vines, and the ground disappeared. They hit a steep slope, tumbling down hard through wet ferns, sharp rocks, and thick mud. The sounds of the lizard behind them grew faint, then stopped altogether. When they finally landed, bruised and gasping, he was in a hollowed-out gully surrounded by enormous fungi, the air damp and still. Chet rolled over and wheezed. Okay. You win. This island? Not on our loyalty program." Abram sat up, checking his arms, wincing. "You okay?" "I think I swallowed a beetle." Chet grimaced, spitting onto the jungle floor. They sat in silence, listening. No roar, no movement. But the jungle had changed. The air was thicker here, the colors darker. They were deeper in now, and nothing from this point was coming back in a crate.
They didn't say it out loud, but both of them knew. They were lost. The GPS was toast, crushed in the fall. The sun barely broke through the canopy. Everything looked the same. Green, wet, endless. Abram checked their compass. It spun uselessly, jittering in place. "That's not good," he muttered. Chet was about to respond when he stopped, squinting ahead. "What is that?" Up ahead, something huge sat half sunken in the mud. A toad, the size of a beach ball, chest slowly rising and falling. Its skin was dark, pitted and glossy like oiled armor. One of its eyes had been torn open, oozing yellow and twitching. "Is it dead?" Chet whispered. Abram stepped forward cautiously. "No, just hurt." He crouched, hands out, scanning it like he was in the shop again. "It's still breathing. Something got to it." That's when they heard the clicking. At first they thought it was just insects. But then the sound grew louder, more deliberate. Like something talking. Out of the trees came the mantises. Dozens of them, 3 to 4 feet tall, each a different kaleidoscope of colors. Some crawled, some flew, landing in sickening bursts of wing beats. Their eyes glittered black, their forelimbs flexed like razors unfolding. They weren't interested in the toad. They were looking at Abram and Chet. "Don't move," Abram whispered. Chet moved. A stick snapped, and the mantises charged. The air filled with shrieks and flapping wings. One slammed into Chet's chest, knocking him back. Another slashed across Abram's arm, drawing blood in a long, shallow cut. The pain was instant. "Fuck!" Abram shouted. "There's no end to this shit." They grabbed sticks, rocks, fought wildly, swinging, yelling, breaking legs and cracking shells. One mantis bit into Chet's thigh, mandibles sawing in. Abram knocked it off with a rock, panting, only to feel hot breath on his neck. He turned, and a massive mantis lunged from the air, its limbs splaying wide. It gripped his chest, slamming him backward into the mud. Mandibles opened, hinged, flexing. It bit down. Abram jammed his hand between its jaws, screaming as the edges dug in. He could feel the pressure building, crunching down toward his fingers. Then, snap. He found the joint, twisted hard, and the thing spasmed. One more shove, and it rolled off, twitching. He gasped, bloody, shaking. Chet dragged himself over, his shirt torn and leg bleeding. "Are you... Jesus, man! Keep moving!" Abram croaked, grabbing him. "They gardened the toad, their fucking food, damn it!" They didn't look back. The mantises didn't follow. But their clicking did.
soft and steady until it finally faded. They limped through the brush, dripping sweat and blood, until they found a break in the terrain. A slope of pale stone carved into the jungle wall, half hidden behind twisted vines. A cave mouth, wide and dark, yawning like a wound. Chet looked at it, breathing hard. "You sure about this?" Abram didn't answer. He was already ducking inside. The air dropped 20 degrees immediately. It smelled of wet stone and old rot. The sound of the jungle faded, replaced by a dull, distant drip. 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 They sank to the ground a few feet in, backs against the cold rock. Outside, the vines swayed, hiding them from the world. For the first time since landing, they were still. Abram peeled back his shirt. 3 long gashes across his ribs, already swelling. He winced. Chet sat beside him, shirt tied tight around his thigh, still bleeding through. "This was your idea," Chet muttered. Abram didn't look at him. "No, this was our idea." "And you said we could be legends," Chet snapped. "Yeah, well," Abram groaned, adjusting his cap. "Legends usually don't limp." Silence. Then a sound. Not a loud one, not dramatic, just a soft shifting, like wet burlap dragging across stone. Both froze. Abram turned, slowly toward the back of the cave. The light didn't reach far, but something was there. A shape. Not movement exactly, but presence. A slow exhale echoed through the space. Not theirs. Then something scraped along the wall. High up, like a limb testing gravity, like weight moving with purpose. Chet whispered, "Is it more mantises?" Abram shook his head, eyes wide. "Something else." The shadow shifted, and the back of the cave darkened. The shadows peeled back. It didn't crawl, it unfolded. 8 legs, thick as forearms, emerged from the back of the cave, long, furred, and slick with damp stone dust. The body followed, bulbous, low-slung, covered in patchy black and brown hair that twitched as it moved. Its eyes, clustered and glistening like beads of oil. The thing was the size of a pickup truck, and it moved with horrifying grace. "Run, Chet!" Too late. The tarantula launched, a blur of motion and hair. It struck Chet so fast he didn't even scream. One heavy leg slammed down across his chest, the other puncturing his shoulder with its hooked claw end. Abram rushed forward, screaming, swinging wildly to save his oldest friend. He struck the abdomen, a dull thud, like hitting a sandbag. Urticating hairs thick as metal twine dug into his skin, causing large red swollen patches with every strike. The tarantula didn't flinch. Instead, it lifted Chet, already dragging silk from its spinnerets. Thick, gray-white strands poured out, wrapping his torso, his arms, his face. Chet thrashed once. A high, muffled sound escaped beneath the web. Then nothing. Abram tried to reach him again, grabbing his leg. But the tarantula hissed, a high, piercing screech, and kicked him backward with one of its rear legs. The blow sent him sprawling into the wall, the breath knocked out of him. Dazed, Abram watched as it lifted the cocoon shape of Chet, now fully wrapped, twitching only slightly, and crawled backward deeper into the dark. No hurry, no fear, like a predator returning to its lair. The silk trailed behind them, glistening like tendon. And then, it was gone. The cave was silent again, except for Abram's ragged breathing and the slow, sticky sound of web sliding across stone deeper inside. Abram sat in the dark a long time. He didn't call out. He knew what silence meant in the wild, especially this wild. He stood, trembling, arm bleeding, and made a decision. "I'm getting off this island," he said aloud, voice shaking. "And I'm not going home empty-handed. Chet wouldn't have let me."
Abram pushed through a curtain of vines just beyond the cave's mouth and stumbled into a narrow clearing. There, not 10 feet from the cave entrance, half buried beneath moss and webbing, was a backpack, old faded orange. Not theirs. He knelt down and pulled it free. Webb clung to it like it didn't want to let go. Inside, a hand-drawn map, weather-worn but legible. Routes crisscrossed the island. Red X's circled words: shoreline cave, nesting basin, and boat drop-off. A leather-bound field journal, soaked and falling apart. But he could still read. Rojas promised a find. Said we'd make history. Said the bugs weren't a threat if we followed his rules. This island is a death trap. Jorge was eaten by nightfall. Abram gritted his teeth. We weren't the first to come here. Drake. That fucking prick set us up. Abram screamed to no one. Then, still digging into the backpack, at the bottom, wrapped in a stiff, mildewed t-shirt, a .357 revolver fully loaded. Abram stared at it. Heavy. Clean. Not rusted. Someone had taken care of it until they hadn't. He turned the map over. One more note scrawled hastily in pencil. If you find this, Miguel, don't go to the cliff hive. Go east, shoreline cave, 3 miles, move fast. Abram slid the gun into his belt, pocketed the map, looked at the jungle rising around him, breathing, waiting. Okay, he whispered. Let's fucking finish this.
He followed the map toward the boat drop-off. It would take him through the area designated as the nesting basin. That sounded ominous, but he was too focused on vengeance to care anymore. The path wound downward through broken terrain, roots like bones, leaves like wax. Abram moved fast but silent, revolver drawn, teeth clenched. The jungle wasn't following him anymore. It was watching. He came to a narrow outcrop and crouched low. Below, sprawled across the rot of a long-fallen tree, was a crease in the earth, thick with pulped bark and oozing decay. And nestled within it, half buried in muck and webbing, was a nest. Dozens of translucent oval eggs, each as long as a soda can, quivered gently. Inside them, shadows curled tight, twitching. Jaws, legs, lots of legs. A massive centipede, at least 5 feet long, lay coiled around the nest. Its body shimmered faintly, iridescent in the low light. Its legs twitched as it breathed. It watched the eggs like a sentinel. Then, another centipede, even larger, emerged from the brush. Its pincers dragged a small, freshly killed mammal, something between a rat and a possum, its eyes still open. It laid the carcass down beside the first, brushing against its mate with antennae. There was a strange moment of stillness. Then the second centipede crawled off, disappearing into the undergrowth. Abram raised a brow. A few minutes later, a third creature approached. Not a centipede, something thicker, with armored limbs and serrated forelegs like scythes. It moved with slow, deliberate confidence. The mother centipede uncoiled, hissed, and launched. The fight was fast and vicious. Limbs flailed, soil exploded. The intruder was larger but slower, no match for the mother's speed. It hissed, screeched, and retreated, vanishing into the jungle with chunks of its plating missing. The mother returned to the eggs, visibly wounded, curling tighter around them, her legs now twitching from strain. Abram moved. Quiet. Quick. He slid down the slope like a shadow, clutching the web-covered backpack from earlier. When he reached the edge of the nest, he hesitated only once, just long enough to see the mother's eyes flutter shut in exhaustion. Then he plunged his hands into the egg pile. Warm, wet. The eggs squirmed at his touch. One burst slightly, releasing a viscous, musky fluid. He didn't care. He shoved 6 into the pack, then more. Soon it was full. Dozens of eggs pulsing with movement, some already pushing tiny claws and jaws against their skins. The mother twitched. Abram zipped the bag shut and whispered, "I've got a shipment for you, Drake." And then he turned toward the beach.
The map led him east, through thorns and swampy lowland. He moved like a ghost. Quiet, low, eyes scanning the trees for anything that shouldn't exist. He didn't stop. Not even to bandage his arm, which had gone stiff. He was running on rage now. By dusk, he reached the cliff. It jutted out over the eastern shore like a jagged tooth. Vines choked the stone, swaying slightly in the ocean wind. The view from the top was wide, clear across the surf and sand, and below, on the beach where they'd landed, a boat. Not the one they came in. Sleeker, bigger, professionally rigged. 3 men moved back and forth from the jungle edge to the deck, carrying sealed crates. Abram and Chet's crates, carefully labeled, stacked with care. One man even wiped down a terrarium with a cloth. Drake stood near the bow, laughing. Even from this distance, Abram could hear the smugness in his voice, carried on the wind like poison. "It's the same every time," Drake said, grinning. "Give these pampered assholes a call, a promise, let them burn their wallets on traveling gear, then let the island chew them up." One of the men said something indistinct. Drake snorted. "They collect it, then I sell it, easy money, in these specimens. Hell, I've got a standing buyer in Singapore who'd kill for that mantis." Abram's blood went cold. Chet was still wrapped up somewhere in the dark, food for something ancient, and Drake was down there grinning over glass cases. Abram stared down at them, hand gripping the revolver. The metal was warm from his body, slick with sweat. The boat engine kicked on, low and throaty, ready to go. And just then, as the last crate was being loaded, Drake turned his head and looked toward the cliff. He didn't see Abram. Not really. But something made him pause. He squinted into the vines, and Abram stared back, heart thudding. "Not yet," he whispered. "Not yet." The sun was just beginning to set, red and swollen behind the mist. When Abram stepped out of the tree line and onto the beach, the surf hissed and foamed at the edge of the sand, and the boat engine was still idling low, ready to leave. Drake stood with his back to the jungle, facing the open sea. He was laughing, gesturing at the crates now lashed and stacked on the deck. His men moved around lazily, confident. No one was looking inland, until Abram raised the revolver. "Hey, asshole!" 3 heads turned at once. Drake squinted into the evening glare, then froze. "You!" Abram kept walking, slow and steady, covered in cuts, shirt torn, one eye nearly swollen shut, but calm, determined. The backpack was slung over one shoulder, humming faintly with soft clicks and rustling movement. "Miss me?" Drake raised a hand, trying to keep things light. "Now listen. I didn't know you were still alive?" Abram cut in. "Yeah. Funny thing about not getting eaten alive in the dark. Builds character." One of Drake's men reached for something. "Try it," Abram said, leveling the revolver at the man's chest. "Do it, and I drop every single one of you." The man backed off, hands raised. Abram turned to Drake. "You lied to us. You sent us in with no warning, no backup, no exit plan." "It's business, man," Drake said, a little too quickly. "You signed up for risk. You knew what this was." Chet didn't. Drake rolled his eyes. "Look, I get it. He didn't make it. Sucks. But you brought us product. We can still make some money together." Abram smiled, wide, humorless. "No, you just helped yourself to the haul, but you did save me the trouble of loading it up. Thanks for organizing everything, by the way. Real tidy, real professional."
Drake's face twisted. What do you want? A ride, Abram said. One guy. Take me back. That's it. Drake hesitated, then laughed dryly. That's it? Oh, and I'm not leaving you completely stranded, Abram said, lifting the backpack off his shoulder and tossing it to the sand at Drake's feet. Figured you could use supplies, since you're such a resourceful bastard. Drake looked at the bag. It twitched. A low, skittering rustle sounded from inside. He looked up sharply. What is that? Abram just turned, walking calmly toward the boat. Chet's legacy. Drake took one slow step back. Then the zipper split. The backpack burst open, split from within, as a half-dozen slick, translucent centipede hatchlings spilled out in a writhing heap, tiny, shrieking, vicious, already gnashing with segmented jaws. Drake screamed. One of the men drew a knife. Too late. The jungle behind it exploded open. The mother centipede, furious, blood-slick, still wounded, charged down the beach. Mandibles flared. And behind her, the larger mate, even faster. There was no time to run. The first man went down shrieking, bitten clean to the neck. The second tried to scramble up the boat's ramp, was pulled down by a flurry of clawed limbs and torn apart. Drake turned and ran, kicking sand, howling. The baby centipedes swarmed his legs, crawling up his back, wriggling into his shirt. He screamed, and the mother pounced. She pinned him down, mandibles sinking in. You son of a... Ah! His voice broke into gurgles. He thrashed, then stopped. Abram didn't look back. He stepped onto the boat, sat down in the rear, turned the revolver toward the last remaining man. Frozen, trembling at the helm. Start the engine. The man obeyed without a word. As the boat pulled away, the jungle faded into fog. The sounds of tearing and clicking slowly disappeared under the growl of the motor in the endless crash of waves. Abram stared out to sea, wind hitting his face. Behind him, Cold-Blooded Kingdom's final collection sat locked in crates. And inside one crate, just barely audible, something scratched.
The veil draws shut once more, and our guest from beyond fades into the hush of candlelight. You've done well to linger this long, friend. Not everyone has the stomach for such company. But should you ever feel that cold breath on your neck, or hear a whisper that don't belong to the living, just return here to the Seance Society, where the dead speak and the living listen. Like and subscribe to our channel for more ghastly tales. Oh, and don't forget your creepy cocktail recipe. It's buried down in the description.